Good morning. I hope everything is running smoothly. For you this morning. Gonna set up some jams today, figuring out what I want to do with a friend of mine that I'm meeting up with later today. I'm also just kind of messing around with the OB6 octatrack today, as you can see. I found this interesting patch. That has like a pulse oscillator at low frequency, manipulating the filter, so I can increase the, let me show what it sounds like with if I set it to sine wave, increase the amount. You can hear that the filter is different for each note because the oscillator is mapped to the keyboard, so you get slightly different speeds. If I increase it, pretty cool. And you can adjust the shape. Oh wait, different oscillator. So now this is a pulse. If I increase the pulse width, I get these sort of popped out. I wonder if I like that. There we go. So now it's basically picking the notes based on where the oscillator is opening up. So I can control this with my foot. Glad you think so. That's very, very kind of you to say. I appreciate that. So again, this pulse oscillator in oscillator 2, VCO2 on my synth, is actually controlling the filter. And because it's mapped to each note, I'm getting these pulsy, random notes coming out. And they never overlap because the higher notes are faster. What's really sick about this is, since I can use the filter to let those lower frequencies out. But you still get that pop of those filter jumps. Sounds like magic. That note coming from? Some kind of self-resonant thing going on. All right, so I'm in again for joining me today. Just kind of messing with some sounds. I have a jam with somebody later today, my friend Alex, and just trying to keep things open and free. I mean, I'm going to introduce some rhythm here just because I'm getting bored, but it's been kind of challenging to find a way to use rhythm with other people, especially people who aren't, using MIDI-synced devices. So I'm trying to keep it fairly loose. He has a rhythm composer, which is super sick. But I think we're gonna try just like a basic, Obviously this thing down here is not synced at all. The synths I'm using today are a Novation base station and OB6. Wow, welcome from South Korea. That's amazing. Thanks for tuning in. Really into this little 12 beat pattern, if that's what it is. I'm not counting, but I'm gonna set the clock to 96 actually. We're going to set this back to 100 because my syncing seems to be off. Thank you very much. That's amazing. I'm always so excited to hear that people are getting something out of this. So yeah, it means a lot to share your experience with my channel. I kind of just put this stuff out, and I don't always make it super nice. So I'm very pleased to know that it's helping people. I've been trying to play a little more loosely with time. One way I do that, some kind of refrain that you don't have to worry about how long it is in between. This is less of an octatrack tip and more of just like a thing that I've been trying stylistically. You know, like, if you don't count in between, you just have some sort of motif, almost like a melody that comes back. It's like, oh, here we are. There's a certain natural rhythm that can sort of come out of, not rhythm, but timing, awareness of space, awareness of time. Yeah, so the pattern that I really like is this sort of like 5-bar, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, and then it repeats. Cool is I have all of this recording in Ableton, so I got the bass station, I got the OB6, I got the octatrack. It's just slowed down for some reason. the intended effect. Sounds vaguely like Bejeweled. I think maybe it's just the chords I'm choosing. It's also good practice for left hand dexterity, just trying to do two things at the same time. That's kind of what piano is all about anyway. So instead of playing bass, I'm just operating a piece of hardware. See, this is cool. If I take the, if I manipulate the filter here, then the pulse oscillator filter thing sort of appears on the tail end. Oh, that's so cool. Prep for the prep. That's always. I'm always prepping for the prep. I'm never not prepping. Everything is a prep for the next prep. Obviously, there's shows, but I'd like to. I mean, as long as we're not making money, there's no rules, right? It's just like. I'm just hanging out with friends, putting videos on YouTube, and I'll record the stuff that works, but as long as I'm making something, I think something's working. I don't really... There's things that we can finish. In my case, what I finish typically is stuff that's inspired by these jams. I've been trying for probably 2 years now. I mean, as long as the channel's been around, I've been trying to use the Octatrack for live jams. And I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I'm beginning to think that what I do live for an audience is going to be a lot closer to what's going on here than some kind of pre-designed set. Because every time I try to do that, I lose focus, or I lose energy, or I lose interest. Obviously, you know, nobody's gonna show up to a park and listen to me. Well, who knows? Maybe you guys would. Show up at a park and listen to me just chat. That'd be sick. But actually, I've been working spoken word into my album. I'm working on an album right now, and I feel as though there's gotta be some of this format that has made its way into it, because I have a couple pieces that are sort of spoken word with music behind them, and the arrangements are fairly sparse, so very much influenced by this space, I think. But full disclosure, this channel is kind of like where I practice. It's kind of like my public practice room. And that's probably why I don't have a ton of regular I mean, I do, But the people who watch me seem to be people who are kind of just like chilling. One of these days I'll get my shit together. We'll see. There was a period where I was doing, if you look up like Office Hours live set on my channel, you'll find a lot of more formalized sets, and I think what's really happening is I have so much going on during the week that I haven't really been able to feel confident enough to have a recurring segment like I did at the beginning of quarantine, where every Friday I would sort of like do this one thing. But I'm hoping to get back into it. I have a lot of really cool ideas that I could build sets around. It's just that I do so many different things that it can feel more scary to formalize it than to just sit down with this thing and kind of explore. And that seems to be the most fulfilling thing to me right now. And I'm sampling all of this, so these things might make it into songs. Just sort of keeping things porous. Peter. Cool. Let's try something else. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I found that the more I plan, the less excited I get, and especially about like little moments like that. And I could string together a bunch of cool moments, but I don't really enjoy that process. I mean, I do. Okay, so I enjoy producing. I enjoy making tracks. And I enjoy the craft of composing and arranging things. I enjoy songwriting. But then when it comes to like live performance, I feel like I have had this sort of rift. And I think what I need is just more live practice. But nowadays it's very difficult to practice live, especially in LA. There's very little opportunity to just jam in public with people watching because most of those places have already been sort of taken over by more formalized events, which, generate cash and need some sort of predictable entertainment. But I've been scoping the scene and seeing places where I could potentially experiment. And I could just go to a park somewhere with a PA. But yeah, I think I have sort of like, in my mind, I have two versions of performance. One is like completely unrehearsed, kind of like what's going on here. And then one is like highly rehearsed, where I have almost everything mapped out. And I think I'd like to I think one of my biggest goals, like in life period, is to sort of like combine those two things. And if you've watched this channel before, you're probably somewhat aware of that, because I talk about that a lot. There's even a rift between some of my favorite jams on here and like what I can tell somebody I can do, you know? Live, because it's like I could send them a YouTube video from like 6 months ago, which I have in the past, but it's like, how do I even know that what I do when I go is going to be anything like that, based on the kinds of stuff that comes out here? So it's like, it's kind of it's hard to pitch. But the goal is to just keep practicing and just trust that all of these things are just going to come together. And if they're not, I mean, I'm still having a great time. That's kind of the, you know, the hope is that the consolation is it's always a bonus to do other things, and that whatever's happening here is the goal. And also just kind of like, I feel like this channel, thanks to y'all, has really helped me sort of like build a bit of, maybe not armor, but just build some awareness and confidence in what I actually like doing, and sort of like not caring as much about if people are with it, because it's not really, I mean, it is for you, and I think it's really awesome to hear that people are like enjoying it, and I wouldn't put it up if I didn't think people were going to, if the channel hadn't started picking up from like 2 years ago, I wouldn't have just like kept putting videos up. I'd probably just kind of, well, actually, to be honest, like there was probably like a good few months where I wasn't getting a ton of viewership. But I guess what I'm trying to say is this channel has really helped me enjoy music. So thank you for watching, those of you who've been sort of sticking around and watching these kind of loosely thrown together videos, because it really helps me dial into the things that I care about and sort of like put aside some of the things that typically drive music in our world today. YouTube, like you said, it's this, I think, who said this at the very beginning? Who cares, man, damn, was saying that this channel feels like a secret. And I really love that, because it means that it's not really doing what a lot of YouTube videos do. And one of my sort of meta goals is to just sort of like build my own relationship to technology, whether that's these keyboards and the Octatrack, and the computer and social media. It's like finding something that I actually like doing in all of these places, so that I'm not like always disappointed. Because it's easy to be disappointed when you're sort of following the guidelines. Because the guidelines, okay, I'm getting kind of like philosophical here, but the guidelines are sort of like typically designed for somebody else or for the benefit of the platform, or in the case of music, I feel like we bring a lot of those insecurities. And music is so personal, you know, like if it's not working, it's not because you haven't I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of I hear a lot of inadequacy from musicians. Sorry, I'm just scoring my soapbox monologue here. What was I saying? Yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of like insecurity around music, like is this good enough? And to me, a lot of that comes from a fear that's sort of like socially informed, that like what I'm doing isn't gonna have some kind of future outcome. And I do that all the time too. So it's not just, I'm not just saying that as though I'm like outside of it. I'm definitely somebody who deals with a lot of that. But I feel like I'm trying to build better habits, and some of that involves having some kind of practice around technology, around music, around anything in which you feel insecure, where you can just like come and meet that resistance and trust that it's like it's a practice of self-care and self-love to say that that's enough. Like whatever you're doing is enough. So in other words, this channel is kind of like that for me. I come here and I read occasionally comments from people asking me to do other things with the channel, and I go, yeah, that's interesting, but that's not really what I want to do, or that is what I want to do. And just like having that relationship to other people's feedback is really helping me feel like what I'm doing is enough, because I'm asking myself and I'm like, oh yeah, this is pretty much all I want to do. It does get challenging though, in terms of like having dreams of playing shows. You can't just play shows unless you're a professional musician, and that comes with its own kind of baggage. So I've been kind of navigating that lately. Because I do the things a professional musician would do, but it is not a paid profession at the moment. What was I trying to say even? I don't know. Basically just that like practice is okay. I think what I end up hearing a lot is that like, how do I achieve this goal? And obviously I think goals are very important, but I think also sort of like enjoying that middle point and understanding that we're always in the middle point is something that I try to remind myself a lot, because I have had some versions of success that never really felt like that was enough, you know? and the added bonus is that I've actually made more music in a state of kindness towards like what I'm doing and patience. I've actually found more creative output in this current phase of just like letting things flow a little more and not forcing ideas to come out on a schedule. Like this past quarantine, I put out like a mixtape and a remix EP and a whole album of drone ambient pieces. And that really showed me that like my original sort of strategies for efficiency were actually not sustainable over a long period of time. And that it was actually far more, if you really want to cut it that way, it was actually far more productive to be kind to myself and just practice and enjoy things. I would also add that there's, you know, like, that's just how I'm telling the story. There's probably all kinds of other things at work, but another part of that was just being down with making all kinds of music. Like, I find that I make more when I'm when I'm open to making more styles, because when I stick with one style, I kind of like get bored. Yeah, I find that I tend to get a little bored if I stick to one style, so switching styles and just listening to more music and being more open to make different kinds of music has really helped me just be excited about what comes out. I feel like it's easier to maybe this is just me, but I feel like it's almost a more healthy and effective endeavor to train yourself to change your expectations than it is to try to perfect a particular style, because styles change, and I've found that when I reach a certain point where I'm like, wow, I really achieved this thing, it's like the amount of time it took me, and obviously I think it's also helpful because those experiences also helped inform everything. So my level of production quality has probably just like gone up gradually too. But music quality is subjective, and I think it has a lot more to do with consistency for people than it has to do with some kind of objective technical approaches. Hey Digifex, just doing my spiel. But yeah, I feel like changing expectations is easier than getting good. In other areas, like for example in video games, you can't just change your expectations, because there's sort of and it's funny because I've been playing fighting games. I've started playing Guilty Gear. There's this new fighting game that I'm really enjoying, and you can't just change your expectations. Or it's much harder because there's a way that you win, and there's like a million ways you can lose. So obviously you want to do what it takes to win, and that sort of funnels technique into a particular direction. But with music, if you look at just all music ever, there's examples of just every kind of music that has been met with both acclaim and just like complete dismissal. And to me that shows that like if you do anything consistently enough with enough intention behind it, you can convince people, or you can find people who like it. And really, I think listening to music and practicing training your ear to like what you make can be more, I know it's like, even just as I'm saying it, it sounds like, you know, telling someone with insomnia to just go to sleep or something. But it's worth a shot. I just don't hear people talk about it enough. Like, people talk a lot about practice and technique and the plugins and the training courses and things like that, but I really think for me that just, I love, I feel as though the more music I listen to, the more okay it is to do weird things, because I hear examples of them. And it also helps that I live in a place where I can go to a show where very strange things are being played, and it also feels kind of encouraging in that direction. But even just music alone, I feel like you can just find anything now. And if you saturate yourself in that world, and find things to appreciate about it, then it's like you can find something that's easier to make that is also something that you appreciate. And if you start there, or make like 30-second things. And again, this is still very difficult for me. I'm like working on it. I'm actually working on an album right now that's very scary to put out, because it's filled with things that I have not really shared before. And stylistically, it's also kind of different. So finding community around that is definitely helpful. Even just like one person who shares your taste in something that's weird can just like completely help. Confidence in making music like that. Anyway, I don't know who I'm talking to here. Probably myself, as usual. I just remember this like anecdote from when I was in, this memory, I should say. Anecdote is sort of like externalized memory, but when I was in middle school, high school, I played like classical piano competitions and stuff, and I was very in that world. That was like kind of the only music I had, or that I was familiar with growing up, until high school. And I remember there were a few times where I suddenly became really fascinated with the sound of just like a piano with the pedal down, just playing. I'm gonna see if I can imitate this with like a... So imagine there's a piano. And there would be like a lot of reverb probably. And then I would just go up a half step with the pedal. And there was just something really freeing about listening to that over and over again. I think I actually played only the white keys. No, I think it was... And it's one of those early memories where I'm like, that was like a part of me poking out that was just so different from what I was learning at the time. And I think we all have things like that, where you just sort of respond to like the vibrations of sound, And it's like pre-judgment. Just something that you can't even describe. And I think getting to that place for me is like a very helpful exercise, because I have so many rules in my head about how notes should be. Obviously, I'm following them right now. But my favorite is when I find music that I'm just like, I don't even know how this works, but it sounds like it works. Well, thank you again for hanging out. I'm probably gonna peace now, pack up my things. I'm gonna do this jam with my friend Alex. If you want to check out things that we've recorded in the past, I have 2 videos up in my channel. I think it's called an OB6, an Octatrack, and a Rhythm Arranger. I've been brainstorming ways that we can jam that will be the most fun, I guess. And I think I'm going to try doing like little 10-minute bursts. Unless, of course, we hit a stride or something, but I think it'd be nice to sort of like separate it out that way, so we can sort of like collect ideas, essentially. Thanks again. I have been trying to put together this video for one of these Fridays about using the Octatrack for I Ching. If anyone's familiar with I Ching, it's a Chinese divination practice dating back like thousands of years. And I found a way to use the Octatrack to get readings. So when I get the time to compile the necessary clips, I will share it. And for the very small percentage of you who are curious about that, it will be my gift. Anyway, thanks again, and I'll see you next week.